These ideas to change this society, and Oliver mentioned that what was important for him, it was the situation of going back. Liberal and central politics went back one step, two steps, three steps, and they didn't realize when this extremist took the weapon, took the guns, and started to shoot. Yes, so I think it's because now it's like nice discussions about extremism. Yes, we can talk about it. We can be agree or not, etc., etc. But I think in this Oliver real experience of war and real experience what can conservative turn do in the society, it's in the strong perspective is something
much more alarming than we think.
Yes,
or
yes,
than we
yes.
do it, because we don't have the consciousness of how critical.
Yes, I think it's the question of completely different consciousness.
Marta's example goes in another way, partly because...
I wish we could stir the audience so much as you do in Poland and in Slovakia, because I think almost whatever you do in the Czech theatre would be accepted. So this is our audience. This is well, I don't want to talk what's there. I'll start with something else. Yes.
For example, in Brno, there were a lot of manifestations.
I wish we had this manifestation
for our variety.
We are not without problems. We have also.
In fact, it was the only, as far maybe the Czech audience would help me, but as far as I can remember, this was the biggest protest against the theatre performance. What happened in Svět Brno this summer? I can't think of any because. Oh, sorry, what did I say? Summer. Well, May is kind of bored, but yeah, this is what because the last moment when I remember the theatre was on the front page of the dailies, Czech dailies, was when Rococo theatre premiered My Country, Má vlast, where real, like where they were real text based on real text of the politics, which was 2009 maybe. But since that, it's very difficult to get to such general attention politically. Anyway, what we concern more about, and Miriam was talking about, is the discussions somehow, I feel. And when I look throughout the program of theatres, especially in Prague, and out of Prague nowadays as well, we are more open and we do more discussions and meeting with the audience. Somehow, what's really fulfilling, which aim of the theatre or mission of the theatre is being fulfilled nowadays in the Czech Republic. I think it's actually live meeting with the audience. There's more and more. We have meetings. This was the discussion about the tradition of the National Theatre actually. And I think there's bigger and bigger group of audience which wants to discuss the show afterwards. We had during our festival called Prague Crossroad, which is actually another way how to enlarge the impact of your theatre is to organize a festival, and I'm sure Palmovka would confirm this. We had a projection of My Country, which was originally a performance of the National Theatre in London, and now it's turned into a film. And we had discussion with school kids, and school kids don't go very often to the National Theatre because we perform in the evenings, mainly, marginally. And we had a huge discussion about politics, about Brexit, and part of the students, what you see in nowadays society, the break, you could see it in the discussion with the school kids as well. And I think my observation is that they did not change their audience. This is yeah, this is Polish discussion. So, but I wanted to talk about two performances, which I think extended, not dramatically, but slightly, our audience. One of them is Faust by Jan Frič, who's a youngish Czech director, and it was very, or actually it still is, it's very, I would say, brave approach to classics, which is often staged in the Czech Republic, but never to such like extent, with, you know, huge set design, both parts, even though cut it very much, with new translation, and a lot of younger audience started to come, and this is what the National Theatre as such needs very much to attract younger audience. And the other performance is New Century, which is a play by Paul Radnik. It's based on stand-up comedies. I did not have huge expectation about the audience, and actually when I saw the dress rehearsal, I was kind of scared that people would, how do you say, stone us. Nothing like that happened, actually the contrary. And since it's very like queer and gay society or minority oriented, we attracted a lot of audience from this minority, and then nowadays the performance is almost sold out every evening whenever we perform it, and it became a place where a lot of gay or queer people meet, and we had discussions as well, and we had a lecture as well about queer identity as such. So we managed to somehow extend the concept of who the National Theatre is for, or which minority can find the topics there. And I think this is an aim or a path which we should follow. And for the future, since the National Theatre plans ahead very much, and we are extremely slow, so we are not very good in making like up-to-date performances. We plan on the same thing as Miriam was talking about, a little performance which would travel or tour around the Czech Republic, because this is something where our weak point is in like not taking the people to the National Theatre, but having the National Theatre traveling to some people. So this is something what National Theatre is difficult to do with its regular shows, but we want to make a special performance for that touring.
So far we had two believers in dialogue, and Pavel, who is giving us a perspective that is more alarming, and that maybe we don't see some things through our thoughts. I just want to mention because of Peter Fischer that we might be talking and talking, but important people on decisive positions might be replaced only through very unclear mechanisms. Andras, what is your contribution to this debate? How the Hungarian National Theatre is engaging social interaction, if there is something like this, or if you have this interest?
We are not such intensive political activists, but I think it has. So it's possible to work in this way, and I'm thinking. So yesterday, when we had a discussion about the different types of the audience, I put the question: so what does it mean, conservative? So is it a political term or an aesthetical term? For us, it's a very complex question. But anyway, I'm really on the side of the dialogue, but not the empty dialogue. So I agree with you on that way, that just to talk without meaning, without finding or looking for, let's say, looking for the solutions or to move the conflicts towards the solution, no reason. So in this way, I have lots of I don't know, maybe only one. Okay, so in this case, the first one, but can you start from the 11th minute or 11th minute? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, okay. So I would like to talk about our international festival midterm, because it's a very complex program. We are not only inviting different fashionable directors and plays, but every festival has a kind of accent. And for example, this year, 2018, we had a so-called Arabic accent. So we invited lots of theaters and performances from Arabic countries like Tunis, Lebanon, also refugee theater from Germany. And we had a very interesting discussion with the audience, with the directors, with the actors from these countries, because our feeling is that these debates about refugee and migration and so on get too much political meaning, and not so many people knows these cultures. So for us, it's very important to understand, to see what is this culture. So that's why we invite not only Arabic, but we invited from India, from China, from Japan. We are planning to invite from Africa in the next few years, because we do believe in the cultural, a real cultural connection and a real cultural dialogue.
So, were there any protests and were there any confrontations with, or was the festival with the Arabic accent accepted?
No, there was no any conflicts about that. The only I was a little bit upset that for this to see these performances and for these discussions, not so many people came. I mean, there are lots of journalists writing about that. There are lots of political activists talking about that, but they didn't come. That's the problem. That we have to open more, widen this cultural dialogue.
Speaking about low number, just to have an idea, what does it mean? That you were speaking about low number, or not such a big interest from the public. What is this?
What is the reason?
Yeah, no. Yeah. How many people did come? Just in order to.
Let's say 20.
Okay.
For us, it's very few. So I mean, usually after we also have a program after not all of the, but after the performances, a meeting with the audience. So usually we have 50 or sometimes more, hundreds of audience, and they talk very sincerely in their opinion. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If I may ask the technical support.
If I can comment very shortly, because I'm not agree with you that it's possible to talk, for example, about refugees without political context. It's this subject is always political issue. I think probably now the most important political issue in contemporary Europe. Yes, it's this political dimension of this problem. It's for me the point of start to talking about this cultural dialogue or cultural meeting.
So maybe you misunderstood. I didn't tell that without politics. So, but politics for us is one of the point of view. Politics, and so we. I'm a little afraid that, especially in Hungary, which is similar to Poland. So don't be angry for me that I try to to talk about Hungary, but we are very close countries. Yes, maybe Poland. It's some bigger, but it's the same close country as
and monocultural, mono-religious, etc., etc. And what is
No, Hungary is not mono-religious and not so it's a very complex society in Hungary. Sorry, but anyway, I agree with you.
Yeah. Yes, but you know, this idea of Orban's idea of Hungarian great nation is very similar to Kaczynski's idea of, you know, great Poland. So I think it's the first question: how we can deal with this political and social conflicts in the face of conservative society and conservative governments.
If I understood, one of the answers was this heavy silence, that there was such a low amount of people coming to the festival, that this might be also a political answer. And,
I don't know, you know, I'm not a judge of the audience and it's because, for example, in Poland, in Powszechny, when we organize the events, the performances with refugees, it's you know, the problem with audience is the same, because Polish society, I think, doesn't want to think about refugees, about conflicts, about problems. Yes, and it's of course in Warsaw the biggest audience is in theater, comedy, in entertainment theaters. So
may I have a question?
I just must tell you that the discussion is framed by time. This discussion is lively. I was anyway thinking about the audience too. Can I give you voice, Andras, and then Marta, just to finish this talk, and then if there are some questions, we will slowly go to the end. But please be brief. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you silently, what do you think? Was it a good idea from us to invite these theaters, for example, from Arabic countries, these refugee Syrian?
You know, I think it was a great idea, and from Polish perspective, for example, as I mentioned, we are so close country that some years ago it was almost impossible to imagine that, for example, Arabic director can work in Polish theater, because we weren't interested in other cultures, and it's you know, the part of this problem with conservative term in our countries. Yesterday you mentioned that in Czech it's a new situation that Jan Klata, foreign director, oh my God, from Poland, it's 100 kilometers, yes, to the border, worked in a Czech theater. And you know, in Poland it's the same, of course, that the work of foreign director or actors from other countries talking in other language than Polish is something really new. We are the first theater, for example, in Warsaw, who yesterday we had the first performance with the Falling with Ukrainian subtitles. Yes, what could be something normal, because we have a really huge Ukrainian minority in Warsaw and in Poland. But the society is closed and nationalistic, because I think the tradition of theater, tradition of art was built on very nationalistic ideas.
I would tend to say that we are conservative, but whenever I hear what you say, I think
we like Czech society.
But our problem is not being too conservative. I think, and it's not like a term, but I think that our tendency is to swallow everything, like react passively to almost everything. It's difficult to stir something up. It's difficult to make people to reaction. And of course,
but for example, this problems with Roma minority, I think was yes, but
she
was
didn't finish her sentence. Thank you.
So yeah, and I'm about to pick now. But I think we tend very much to swallowing everything, and I think us as artists we should bring up the topics which don't seem to be comfortable. And I don't know about the topics about refugees, or I think that bringing Arabic theatre to a country is like nothing, because we just show that we are tolerant and, you know, clap, everything, come, leave, fine. But somehow we have to open the topics more concerned or connected with ourselves, and that's something what might start some bigger discussion. But I like the answers. I think us as a society we miss the enemy. Like, it's difficult to say who the enemy is and which is the enemy to fight for, because it's different for each of us. I don't know.
But this anti-migrant climate is the same in which of these countries?
Anti-migrant climate here is extremely strong, but at the same time we don't have any migrants here.
So we too in Poland. It's the problem, the fear from migrants and refugees side in the country, in monocultural country, yes?
I give the last word to Miriam if she wants to. Okay, yes.
Thinking about the answer, so
yes,
okay, may I just one word, because our friend a little bit occupied our conversation. So for this festival we invited not only Arabic performances, but for example, there was a very strong, beautiful and effective performance of Michael Teilhammer, the Caucasian Circle. So the topic of this, very philosophical, but one of the main topic is there is a child and two mothers. Who is the real mother? So if symbolically, if I say our culture or the society is the child or the victim, we do not want to kill this society. So that's why we share. We choose as a credo for this festival. I was born to share love, not hate. So this is our credo from Antigone.
I have really a total stop. Miriam, you wanted to say something, so I give you.
Maybe I'm much more close to Marta. That national theatre still means that you keep kind of the special national values. Maybe not now, but I think we still can show how open this kind of theatre can be, where everything can come, and that it's really for everybody in this total open-minded way. And I still trust in dialogue. And we have a totally different maybe experience with a lot of Balkanians director. What does it mean to work for them and how they deal with this experience, how strongly politically or less politically, and how they're able to put it in the art. That's all. So we need to be total open and to keep this dialogue, but with few people it's not possible to.
Thank you. I decided to give some more space to the interaction between among the speakers, but now I anyway hope that we have 2, 3, 4 minutes. We just have 1 minute for one question. Is there somebody?
Alita,
yes.
I am sorry, we are half an hour late, other speakers are waiting. I'm so sorry for that. I know that it's partly our fault because we started a bit later, but you had 1.5 hours and we need to continue with the program. I'm sorry for that. I would like to thank you for the discussion, and I would like to invite you in 15 minutes, which is 2:45, for the second panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We will move from the capitals to the regions, and but still we will talk about public theaters, about city theaters, Maybe we could start with a short introduction on the term of public theaters. Here in the region, we are using many terms or notions, how to name it, institutional theaters, brick-and-mortar theaters, theaters established by state, region, or a city. But I would like to start with something what we shared when we were preparing this meeting of dramaturgs from the Visegrádské region. And we shared some texts and papers talking about public theaters. One of the fundaments of public culture institution, not only theaters, of course, is that it is understood as a common good which should be protected. The only question, and not easy question, is in what scope, with which scope should we protect this institution. And we shared some articles or publications, such as Dorota Buchwald's paper on the director of the Theatre Institute in Warsaw, about which is a compilation of arguments why to keep public theatre and why to protect them. And she brings these arguments. Firstly, it is a community-enhancing instrument, and it guarantees creative freedom through professional, social, and human security, and it should be the setter, trendsetter, quality standard setter. Of course, that we are facing not an easy situation for public theaters, and not only in our region, but I would say in whole Europe. And another publication we discussed while preparing this symposium was Dragan Klajc's reflections on public theaters all across Europe, not only Central and Eastern European region. And his critique towards adjustment of public theaters to market economy, which brings overtasking of theaters with educational roles, which brings the boom of festivals and entertainment activities, and it's not supporting the core, the art of the artistic excellence in theaters. He observes also that theater ensembles are shrinking while management departments are growing, so you know it probably also from your theaters. And of course, here in our region, we are facing also the problem of the legacy of the social and political transformation after 1989, with all the decentralization process of theaters. Here in the country, we still don't have good legislation on artistic cultural institution or cultural service. So this is a kind of list of topics and problems we should discuss with our guests. I would like to present them now. So this is Lucia Mihalova from Jan Palaric Theatre in Trnava in Slovakia. Next to her we have Matěj Nidra from Divadlo in Brno, Czech Republic. We have Tomáš Jenkot here from Teatr Dramatyczny of Jerzy Szaniawski in Baltic, in Poland. And last but not least, we have Beata Adolian, who is representing the Csokonai National Theatre in Debrecen in Hungary. Maybe it is important to say at the very beginning, we have here three theaters established by city, which are, as far as I know, the only theaters in the city of Trnava, Baltic, and Debrecen. I mean the city-run theaters. You are by the region, okay, or by the region. But you're the only theater public institution in the city. Am I true? No? Okay, so you can explain later. Okay. And we have Mati Nitra, who is in a little bit different situation with Divadlo, because the city of Brno has a city theater, but next to that it has something what is called the Center for Experimental Theater, which is also a city-run organization. So we'll be curious what is your commitment and what is actually the task of the city for this organization. But we could maybe start with something very simple. Let's go back to the topic which was also discussed in the previous panel. Let's start with the mission of your theater. Of course, we would be interested in the mission which is somehow related to the topics of our symposium, which is public value, investment and need. So maybe we can start with Lucia.
Thank you very much. So our theater, Jan Palaric Theater, is the only one professional theater in all Trnava region. So our role or our mission is to cover all needs of our audience, and our audience is from children to old people. So we are trying to bring some critical thinking. Also, we are trying to amuse our audience, as well as trying to advise their own opinions. And our most important role is to cultivate our audience and young generations of our audience.
Actually, the history of your theater is connected with this audience segment, which is youth and children audience. So maybe you can explain a little bit where you stand right now.
Yes, Jan Palaric Theater before 1990s was called Theater for Children and Youth, and now from September we have a new directory, and our direction is more similar than direction of theater for children and youth. So we are planning to work more with schools, with the students, with the teachers, and bring some quality performances, because now in our theater performances for youth and children are like B quality performances, and we are trying to do the best for them, because we are trying to show them something why they would come when they will grow up and will adults.
Thank you. Maki, maybe could you share with us your goals and missions?
Okay, so it was said here, Divadlo is part of the Centrum of Experimental Theatre. You know, the one who are from Czech Republic, you know that this is an institution which was founded after revolution, after '89, by Petr Ostrovský, who is like a legend of Czech avant-garde theatre, also in the times before revolution, like this. And because like he was in his soul the avant-garde theatre maker, so it exists something like manifest of the production of this Centrum of Experimental Theatre from this time, from the beginning of 90s, and it's focused on the making on this kind of theatre which is like finding new ways, and it's avant-garde, it's experimental. So this is the point, or it should be the point of contemporary Centrum of Experimental Theatre in Brno. But there are some problems because, okay, Divadlo is one of the scene, and there are two other scenes. It's Divadlo na provázku, also famous theater which was founded in 70s. Like Divadlo was founded originally in 70s. And the third scene is there, which is now in the last season, because the artistic director is how to say, like he's finishing his the whole career of theater making. Like, so Centrum of Experimental Theater consists of 3 theaters, and each of them should do experimental theater making. So this is a big question of all the contemporary theater maybe in the world. What does it mean to do experimental theater? Or what does it mean to do avant-garde theater? Okay, when I came to Divadlo, it's 3 years ago, together with artistic director. We are graduated in JAMU, in Janáček Academy of Theatre in Brno, in this city. And we started to do new program of the theatre, which was really focused on finding new progressive forms of contemporary, like European theatre, like using new media, doing interpretation of classics, or really focusing on authors' projects. Because like we were watching, seeing the performances which were invented before our coming to theatre, and we needed to change so much. Yeah? But still we were behaving like to be in the manifest of Petr Ostrozlý in his issue to do experiment theatre. So we are doing this, yeah? And now this is big question in this contemporary, like this present month, because in spring, new director of this Centrum of Experimental Theatre was elected by city. And so it looks like it's starting new era with new director. And now it's so much discussions about it in like Czech scene, like mainly between the artists in those theaters and between the politics. So what does it mean? Should we do still something what we read and interpret like is experimental theater, or do city need for us to do something concrete if there is some definition of the experimental theater? So I will only say like in general that we are now in process of discussing what we are doing and trying to discuss it with somebody else who is like, who has so much doubts if it's still experimental theater making or not. Yeah. Anyway, like
we will come back to the relation with the city or region who establishes you, but maybe let's come back to the question of the mission of your theater, which is internally formulated by you. What is the idea, or where are you going, where are you heading?
Yeah, I'm talking about it because like this is our like concrete aim. It's quite clear, like to communicate with mainly the student audience or young audience of the city, because like you said, yeah, in city there is also national theater, there is city theater, there are a lot of different scenes, and like it's in tradition of Divadlo that it was connected to the young and student audience, because in Brno there are a lot of universities and artistic academies and like this. So we are mainly like working with new tendencies, because our targeted group, or it can be, is the student audience. Yeah? Does mean that okay, we can say that we are not doing compromise projects, and we are doing only these projects which we read. They are like progressing. Okay, it's like still some general words, but that's me. These are big words, because it's very. We should write some PhD studies about it. What does it mean? Yeah? Also, there are questions for theater festivals, if they have in their title that it's Festival of Progressive Theater, if they are choosing these kind of pieces. Yeah? These are big questions. I think it's not quite simple to say the answer so clear. I don't know, like our dramaturgy consists of, I can say, like conceptual thinking about dramaturgy. It's still connected to how we read to do progressive or experimental theatre. That we are doing seasonal cycles, and each new project is part of the seasonal cycle, like this concept of the season, which has its own concrete topic. And maybe we will discuss later, we are also writing some like leading manifesto of the season. And
we can project it, maybe, we have it ready, Jan?
Mm-hmm.
Jan? Could we show it? And we will probably need some darkness so that we can read it.
Yeah, of the manifesto. It should be.
I'm afraid. Can we darken a little bit? Yeah. Can you see it? Can you read it? Is it possible? No.
Actually bigger, but
Yeah. Zoom.
is it better?
Yeah. So there are topics like disintegration of meaning, vanishing of solidarity, looking for new common sense, meaning of society, shall we call for the future instead of the growth? I would say that this is a really political statement. So is your goal to do really political engaging theater?
Yeah, what does it mean again? Yeah. Okay, what does it mean political theater? Yeah, we can say in some simple way that the way why we are interpreting this issue of Peter Osselsley in his manifesto of experiment theater, that it means to do kind of politically engaged theater. Because what does it mean like to do politics? To be in some party or like do really like politics as a job, or to have something like influence of politics, or to have some behaving of which is common to do some political action, I don't know. Like, okay, it's kind of politically engaged or like society engaged text. This manifesto is from last season, from the previous season. We have now a new manifesto for this season. Still, it interprets some concrete issues and happening. What is now like problems or crisis in this Western world, or concretely in Europe, because we are more thinking as European theater than Czech theater or Brno theater, yeah, in the choosing the ideas. And sure, it means that the topics can be like in the terms of like Zygmunt Bauman, I don't know. Like it's like after all the borders, that it's everywhere, that we should choose one concrete thing, and because the area of the crisis or problems is so big that it's everywhere, I don't know. So that means that the concrete manifesto and concrete cycle of season has this idea of interpreting contemporary Europe situation, but in one topic. So last year, the concrete topic was the idea of the eternal return to the past. And what does it mean to go back and to celebrate some anniversaries of Europe, like all this year with these eights in the year's date. And what does it mean to go back to the past? Does it mean that we are not thinking about the future and like this? So it was more about the contrast of past and future. And in this season, okay, I will end with this, is focusing on the idea of work. What does it mean, working? Work? What are the phenomena of work in contemporary society? Yeah, you can maybe discuss later.
Okay, Tomasz, what's the mission of your theater, which is located in a post-industrial region? Can you explain a little bit your context?
Yeah, well, the Szaniawski theater, it's, well, mission. Because I found mission like very, very hard words, and well, he was said, like Pavel said, that they were doing a mission of being critical theater. And I think that the whole mission of every public theater is to do political things, because everything is politics now. But our mission in Wałbrzych, which is so strange, because as you said, we are the only dramatic theater in the city, but there is also the puppet theater and the Philharmonics. Those are three only institutions of culture that are in the Wałbrzych, which always is funded by the region. Which helps us a lot, because people in Wałbrzych doesn't need culture. Well, of course, everybody needs it, but this post-industrial, this post-mining, I like to say, society, were never educated to participate in culture. So, what our theater, how our theater survived is this, that the city didn't impose us nothing. So, we could do always what we really wanted to do, by being funded by the region. And this means that we were always doing progressive theater, because there is always like the place for experiment in Wałbrzych, and so many great directors started there. We are discussing this today, that Jan Klata started there, Michael Czeska started there, almost Monika Strzemka, you know, there's a lot of names that people debuted there, because it's like, we've got really little budget, so we are inviting people for making small pieces, and then they're, you know, like getting famous and famous and famous, and then they're returning back to our place. So this is our trouble. And what I find is that Szaniawski mission is also like yours theater. It's seasonal. Now we've got the season, and every season got its credo or its motto or its, you know, like a lead thinking. And during the last 20 years with different art directors, those seasons were changing in the way that, well, I just appointed this, that during the Kruszczyński, this was like the locality was the main topic that was discussed in the theater. It was the very famous production Polak i Diablo by Monika Strzemka. And this was the topic about how the city is reflecting in the people, how the people are reflecting the city. Can we, you know, like pinpoint all the things that are going wrong in Wałbrzych? And this was like for many, many years, theater was discussing with this society, what are the problems of this society. And this, you know, helped us a lot to build some kind of audience, which is very faithful with us. But yet, you know, it was constant change, because the next director, Sebastian Majewski, which is also now our director from this year, on the stage, he just wanted to do more and more experiment, not only to think about local problems, but to think about maybe Polish problems, because what I found is that Polish theater is about Poland, always. It's not about universal something, it's about what happens here in our theater. There, in our country, and it's always about this. We are thinking I think it's also very close thinking, because we are always having our perspective. And even when we are inviting other directors from other countries, we are always imposing them some Polish topics, I guess. So this is something that we do. So this experiments of Sebastian were about Poland as well. So this was the problems about capitalism. The citizens platform was the power, so it was like talking about them a lot in those shows, about the mainstream, because the mainstream was like, you know, and still is very concrete in Poland, and nobody can move it, and so on. The next two directors were Piotr Jacek and Maciej Podstawny, and they, you know, like back to this locality idea. And what they introduced, what is new and we want to continue now, is the educational level. So now, and well, from 5 years now, the education for the people, education for children, education for everybody, I guess, it's like the main thing we want to do. We want to educate our audience to be participant, not only the consumer of our products. So this is our mission now.
Thank you. Beata, could you introduce your theater? We know that similarly as Trnava, you are a bit competing also with the offer of the capital because you are located close to Budapest. So what's the mission of your theater and what's your profile?
Our theater has 3 departments. It has an opera department, department for prose, and department for youngster plays. The theater is funded by the city and the state, and it has this national status, and it means that there are some numbers we have to take in account, how many operas, musicals, and so on.
Excuse me, you have to speak directly.
Probably closer the microphone.
Oh, okay. Is it good? No. Okay. Is it better?
Yeah.
And so this is one side of our theater is dealing with, but we somehow try to maintain a balance. To somehow see what kind of expectations from the audience are coming, but also from the artistic side. And the third thing, we care a lot about our troupe, the company, because we think that so if we inside the theater we can openly discuss things and go through our ideas and discuss it, how it could be implemented or what it can be done. For example, last year it came this idea that we could be the first regional theater that would go into this project started by the Czech Institute in Budapest. It's called the Night of the Literature, and it's about contemporary writings, and these writings are translated into Hungarian and read in each half an hour by an actor in different places of the city, in a smaller region that the audience can walk from one side to another. And that was last year, and this year we started to go through discussions what and how we can participate in this action, and now we are on this. Another thing that the education system in Hungary, but I guess not only in Hungary. I was born in Romania, and there the educational system is also pretty bad, and it has a lot of gaps and everything. So, as a national theater, we started this program for youngsters. It's called Chokonai Youngsters Program, and it has this chip. It's the Chokonai Ifjúsági Program, and it's
theater in education. So there are performances performed in theater classes, and it's a package with performance and discussion and games regarding the topics raised by the play. And it's a very successful program. We had we started in 2015, yes, and we played already above 100 performances, and now as the continuity of this program, from this season we will have a so-called nest for youngsters. They can come inside the theater, and we will give some sort of mentoring program. And this was made also with students from the university. I had a student who came at each rehearsal, and she was so under my mentoring. It's a mentoring program. It's hard to reach to the students from the university because also that the university, the building is a bit far away from the theater, far away in a Debrecen context, and it's like a different city or something. And we go there and we try to reach them, but this is still a point where we have to find some solutions. And we have, for example, so we think that theater is not only that the people come to see a show from 7 to 9 and then they go home and it's very closed. So we also wanted that our actors and the audience somehow meet in different situations, more familiar or personal situations. So for this, it's a good opportunity, the night of the theaters, that in Budapest it exists since a lot of years, but we have it since this was the 3rd year, and it's amazing how people are really interested entering in the coulisses and talking with
you know, the model from Prague or from Czech Republic as well. So you are trying like to open the theater also for these accompanying activities which turn the theater experience into a complex experience, including also participation in rehearsals, discussions with
yes.
actors and so on.
We find this very important.
Okay, so well, maybe we could stay with the topic of your audiences, because I think that you should know who your audiences are, so maybe we can make another round talking about who is your audience and what are your strategies to attract it to your theater, and maybe also we should speak about the way if you do it through topics which are interesting for the audience, or another ways how to communicate with the audience.
I think we have a really bit of problem with our audience, because we are missing few generations, because we have audience like children of primary schools, and then we have audience, if we have a look on evening performances, it's about 60 years old people. So we are trying to attract students from secondary schools and also from universities and high schools, because in Trnava region we have about 70 secondary schools and 2 high schools and 2 universities. There is 7,000 students of university and high schools, and they don't know that in the Trnava is theater. So it's a really big mistake, I think.
What is the reason? Because of course, as a public theater, you should be broadly accessible for all the audiences, you should be there for all. What's the reason that you have such a narrow segment of public?
One problem is a problem with our propagation, because I think we are regional theater, but we look like a city theater, because our posters are not in the nearby cities or villages in the Trnava region. So I think other cities in our region don't know what we are doing, what we are playing, what's happening in the theater. And also our posters is not now, but a few years ago, it looks like from 90s or 80s.
So it's bad marketing, you think, the reason, or it has also something to do with the performances and the program you offer to your audiences?
If we talk about marketing, there was no marketing till January of this year. So I think it was a real big problem, and also a problem is with the quality of our performances, because if you said that regional theater is a quality standard setter, our theater is absolutely not. But we are trying to change it, because we are near to Bratislava, and on the other side near to Nitra. So our audience, we have to fight for our audience, because if they are traveling by car 20 minutes, they come to Bratislava, to National Theatre, and see all people from TV shows and series and all popular actors. And in Nitra there are very popular musical productions and with very high quality and quality ensemble of actors. So we have to strengthen really all our artistic ambitions. Okay. And sorry. Also, our audience. I talk about these old people, about 60 years. They think that our most important mission of our theater is to amuse them. So I sometimes sit on the cashier and just watching what people want from us, and what titles, what performances, what they are interested for. and it's all the same. It's like, what comedy are you playing this month? And we have now 4 comedies in our repertoire and 4 fairy tales. And these 8 performances are sold out for always. And other 12 or 13 performances, which are dramas and tragedies or world classics, they're empty or half empty, because one old woman once said to our cashier that, you know, I have much more drama in my life than in your theater, so I want comedy. So I think this audience, this generation, we need to keep, but we have to find and we have to attract the other generations which are missing now. And of course, young people, students of university, high schools and secondary grammar schools, and we need to strengthen communication with their teachers, with teachers of secondary schools and with pedagogists and professors of universities, because they think that our theater is really sleepy and really stuck in one time, in some age. I told in 80 or in 90s. So the young people want to see something else that we are now offering them.
Well, I think you're describing quite a general program of regional theaters, of many of them, and well, the question is if conservative audiences produce these conservative theaters, or it's vice versa, if the conservative programs produce these conservative audiences. But let's move to Maciej. You are in complete different situation. You have this segment, Lucia is longing for young audiences, students in your theater. How do you get your knowledge about them? How do you communicate with them? How do you form the program for them? Are you somehow in closer contact with them? Do you know them well?
Yeah, we are trying to be. Yeah, these are 2 things, how we find the audience and how we communicate. And this is what we are doing, kind of what we are focusing more in the last 3 years, especially in the last season, that we started to support the communication in terms of, we are doing almost, for each new premiere, we are doing dramaturgical intro, and which was not happening before. And now in this season, it's almost before every show of these new projects, or the projects which we think they are like the most important from our program. And for some projects, we are doing discussion after show. Like there is one example. We did one studio project, small, which is really concretely engaged in the ecological crisis. It's called Anthropocene and this problem. And after all, this show is a discussion. Yeah? And like this discussion can have like 2 hours. Yeah? Like just yesterday, it took 2 hours. The show is only 1 hour, and the discussion was 2 hours. It's very great that we can have this big extension of the play itself, of the piece. Like we knew that this is one way which we should support more and more, because, like I said before, we are more concentrating for some progressive forms of like pieces which are not clearly readable like comedy, tragedy, or satire. It's sometimes a mixture of everything together, and this is the best point to discuss it. So, and also we did this dramaturgical introduction. We took it on video, and each spectator, when he is coming for a show, he can see it also in YouTube, our YouTube channel, and like this. Yeah, we are sharing it on Facebook pages, and we are trying to support this kind of communication in social networks. Like just this season, we also are starting to run this Tumblr channel, or how it's spelling, where we can add some texts, some essays about the new projects. We are trying to do more and more extension of the program itself. And what is another important stuff for finding the audience is okay, we don't have maybe so much money for marketing, and we knew that like in the first season when we should support something what we can call like personal network of contacts. It means that we are communicating also with schools and high schools and like this in our born cities and towns in Moravia region. Like our production manager comes from Uherské Hradiště, which is town like 80 kilometers from Brno. And okay, so we are doing special shows for the students of high school from this city. And okay, maybe it can be typical for all the regional theater, but this was not happening before our era. And it's more and more shows which are targeted like this, that they are more special oriented for somebody from different town. Yeah? Because like from the Moravia region, also Divadlo itself, it has its own tradition from the 70s, because it was not originally founded in Brno, but in a small town like 100 kilometers from Brno, in Prostějov, and still for people from this region it has some name, or yeah, when you say this name of the theater, especially in these cities like Prostějov, Přerov, or these small towns, so they know about it because they know it from their memories. And now in this season, when we realize this, so we have some contact with these spectators, especially in schools from these towns, because, for example, their teacher is remembering Divadlo from this era. Yeah.
Community enhancing instrument.
But you are coming to them, or they are coming to you?
They are coming to our theater, yeah, and we can then lead discussion with them, and they can also see the city, and it's more like some trip to city, but it's the center of it is to see our show. Yeah.
I would say that this is a typical example of community enhancing instruments, theater as this tool, because still there is some common memory shared and experiences of older generations who remember the previous era, so it's a great example. Tomáš, how is your audience? You described yesterday a very paradise, an ideal situation with your audience.
Well,
could you
not
tell
with
us
the
more
audience,
about
with the theater. Because the theater, it is a paradise, I guess. And, well, the topic about audience is always, I don't know, I struggle with it, because on the one hand, we should, make this dialogue with them, and etc., etc. But still, for me, theater is like the only place, the mostly place for artistic expression, and not for the dialogue. Like for me, the artistic expression is a bigger question. So our audience, as I said, we've got some faithful people coming to the theater, but this in the city, which is 100,000 people, this is only 2,000. So 2,000 people, when you divide it by 5 shows for 100 people, then you get no one on the audience. So this is our main problem, because, well, as I said, in Belgium, people don't need to go to theater. They've got one cinema and they go there. They got their TVs, and this is how they spend their time. because there is like the whole depression in this city. The situation isn't inviting you to the theater. So this is our problem. We are of course doing many things how to invite those people, and our marketing is like standing on its head sometimes to have the full audience. But what we've got is this education. I guess this is like the main topic for us, because we've got many meetings. We are participating in this young DRAMplan competition, which is for doing